Shubor nakaslem jong unongsan Hima.
Ka Internal Quality Assurance Cell Jong Keane College haneka sngi kalasdang ke International Conference ba arsngi Halor kapang Climate Change, Indigenous Knowledge System and Food Sovereignty kabala Pynlong ha auditorium. Habakran haneka sngi sedang Senior Advisor ke NESFAS Udrupat Chaudhry Ulaong baka kamrep naka karkhana rep kadon benta kumba liphausan hadu lipho 100% jong ka global warming haribhoi katkum ka jingti benya bala Pynlong da ke Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change. Ulaong ha ka jingti benya lasyam bakinong rep haribhoi kano syakata ka baong ban kentiu ka jingkala ka maryang uslap bat ka jingkiu habayade bat ka jinghap upria bat kiwe. Nakaliang unong seng ya ke NESFAS uba prangroy habakran ha kaniga sngi ulayathu halor ka jingkiu jong ka jingsyak ta hakibor maryang na ka jingkala ka sunbeneng kajingkala kamaryang kakta bat kawanra ya kajingdok bat kata ru iki patba jong kathan bat kaperthehi baro kawe ulaban rap ru da kabaong hatungin ap kumbangile hakipor kibaladep hakidaki artificial intelligence kabaki patba jong kathan shatei lamingi kamdon jingkhen jingdia kabangin la ban kentiu ya kalawe haka kaneke international conference kade kabala Pynlong da kijinga trelang hapdeng ke NESFAS ka Meghalaya Climate Change Center but Meghalaya Basin Development Authority.
The greenhouse does not allow the temperature and the heat to go out to dissipate and it becomes warmer. This is exactly what is happening with the changes in the atmosphere caused because of pollution, right? Now, when we talk about climate change, what we are really talking about is variability in climate or weather, which you see consistently for at least a decade. So you could have a year which is very cold or you don't have rainfall, but the next year you have your normal rainfall, right? That's not climate change. That's a weather variability for a year. But if you have a consistent pattern, for example, when you look at what is happening with rainfall patterns today, you find that rains are delayed, and that has been delayed. You're seeing this phenomena for a number of years. That's climate change. When you see that Shillong has become warmer, it wasn't warm earlier, but you find that temperatures even in spring are going up, and you find this consistently for many years. That is climate change, right? Now, as I said, climate change was something which, as scientists, we knew that these changes were happening. But it took quite a long time before it was taken notice by the powers to be, by governments, by decision makers, by others who were making decisions in terms of plans, policies and plans, right? Until about a decade back, that the IPCC reports finally started making an impact and government started taking it seriously, right? It was in 2007 that the IPCC was awarded the Nobel Prize for their work on this, and government started talking. In fact, the whole, what we would term as the parties in the UN system or the governments, started taking notice and saying that yes, we recognize that there is climate change, it's real, and we cannot no longer ignore that, and the impacts are going to be severe. They also realize that we have very little time to take action. We hardly have a decade, and this is the decade which is running now. We actually, today, we have hardly 6 years to take action. So it's that serious. If we don't, then we are going to reach tipping points and there will be irreversible impacts of climate change.
A few taxis and several government vehicles. The roads, particularly of Iqac, were always filled with students coming from different parts of Northeast India, bringing in different cultural diversity. And we used to walk in the streets of Iqac, trying to practice our rock and roll and jiving and cha-cha steps, eating chow and momo at 2 rupees a plate in a Chinese and Tibetan restaurants, and telling dirty jokes whenever we did that. Mr. Rastanji, I remember, was the chief secretary at that time. And every morning he would go to inspect the beautiful flowers at Wards Lake and at Lady Keane Park. And Shillong was a place where there was so much of cultural diversity. There was so much of biodiversity in the city that it became one of the favorite habitats in the whole of India and in many parts of the world. That's different today. When you go through the traffic jams, you find this is not the Shillong, at least that I knew. But I, for one, have a strong belief that Meghalaya, and indeed Northeast India, can become beacons of hope for climate change, as Rupert had pointed out to us. But to do so, we need to have the courage to go back to the future, as the 1985 movie stated. In 1970, I joined the IAS in Maharashtra, and one of my first posting as the SDO was in a small village, a small district next to Goa. And I attended the first meeting in a big village where I was introduced by accompanying officers. The people kept quiet, but after some time they asked the accompanying officers, did China win the Indo-China War of '62? Why do we have a Chinese officer to be our SDO here today? As people from the northeast of India, we are often mistaken and misrepresented because of our faith, because of our culture, because we look different from other places. In 1975, I was appointed DC of a district of about 30 lakhs people. The district at that time experienced the worst drought in living memory, and we had to organize food and seeds which people have not had. And we were able to bring about seeds, high-yielding seeds, fertilizers, percolation tanks, etc. And that action saved the lives of more than 7 lakhs people. And I was awarded to be the best organizer of the Green Revolution of that time. However, in 2007, an agriculture university did a research on the impacts of the Green Revolution in those areas. And they found that the soil fertility had depleted seriously. The groundwater levels were declining, and a shrinking area of cultivation in Bandara district meant that the actual production was only a marginal increase over a 10 to 15 years period. Many of the traditional varieties also disappeared. The following year, I was transferred to another place where indigenous peoples, tribal peoples were there in Thane. And I thought with the success I had in Bandara district, we would be able to promote the Green Revolution that the government, particularly at that time the Prime Minister, was pushing extremely hard. They refused. They said that our knowledge and our systems and our relationship with our land is sacred, and we do not want any technology that will harm or lead us to a disarray with that. And they taught me a very important lesson that became a cardinal principle in my life ahead and in the work that I do. And I think the caring and sharing and reverence that we have of nature is the foundation of our livelihoods. And as Rupert had rightly pointed out, these are aspects that are often ignored in our academic circles, that are ignored even as we modernize, because we feel these are all old systems that don't need to be followed, and that are ignored at a stage when it's not proper for us.